2015 to 2022, and so and very few times do we have Secretary of Education here. So thank you for
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This board is fun. I really enjoyed my time on this board, and I'm fortunate enough just to be sitting where I am, but Office of Skills Development, which was created, Senator English had a big hand in that back in 2015. So thank you, Senator, for being here. She has been our big supporter from day one, and even before day one, right? So, but this group, OSD, I think packs a punch, punches above its weight, always has, and is, slowly over the years making progress and getting more known across the state in terms of business and economic development and the impacts that it's having in terms of workforce development opportunities with private sector. And that's a theme that you will hear on this board. You'll hear from Cody Waits. For those of you who haven't met Cody, I'm sure everybody's met Cody by now. You hear it from the governor. You hear it from Mike Rogers. You hear it from the theme of employer-driven workforce development training. We view the employers as the customer, and designing workforce training, not for the student, but ultimately, is it gonna meet the customer's need? The employer is gonna hire the student, and the grants that Steffi and her team distribute have that as a major premise. We're gonna have some major workforce development grants, hopefully approved by the legislature this week. And that's a major premise, major theme of those workforce development grants. Total of $88 million over a period of 5 years. So OSD, you'll learn that primary responsibilities are administering secondary centers, which are basically the guinea tech schools. Most of them are on two-year college campuses. There's maybe 3 or 4 of them that are still at high school. Yeah, 7 on high schools. Administered $22 million of grants to private industry. And many of those grants are combined with two-year colleges as well, training providers. $1 million of administration. All this happens with $1 million of Steffi and her team administering the process. They're also administering $29 million of nursing grants that the governor announced about a month ago through the Align process. So, plus we have the State Office of Apprenticeship. So a lot going on in this small group, and a lot happened. But the key is the people sitting around the table, the people from private enterprise that are making sure we're listening, and the words and wishes of the private sector are really driving the train. So great for you to be here. It's great to finally have our first career board since 2022. I'm embarrassed you have to approve the minutes from December of 2022, but we keep things rolling, right? So thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Hugh. Point of privilege. I always like to say that the Office of Skills Development, we're very agile. I want to move at the speed of business, not the speed of government or education. So yesterday morning, I had a meeting with a group that you may or may not be familiar with, Fourth Institute. We work a lot with them on IT and cybersecurity training. And they just mentioned AI, just in kind of in passing. And so that is something that the Secretary and Cody Waits, we have been talking about. We want to get ahead of AI and AI training and AI risk and opportunity. And so I said, hey, I'm just going to try to set up a meeting. with the secretary. And when I sent them a message out, they said, why don't we do it in front of our board? Because again, you guys are driving what we want to do in terms of education. So before we start our meeting, I'm going to invite up Scott Anderson and his team from Forge Institute to kind of give not only you guys, but our agency and the Commerce Department a little bit about artificial intelligence. So thank you, Scott, for being so accommodating and being willing to do this so quickly.
Yeah, my pleasure, Stephanie. Scott Anderson, thanks for the intro. Arkansas is not my home. I didn't grow up here, but it is now. I moved here in '96. The Air Force moved me here from the Pacific Northwest. Daniel Ross from the Forge team is also here. He's our Chief Growth Officer. I'm the external affairs guy. I'm not the best at public speaking, but this is important. So we're going to go over a few things, but basically AI, risk and opportunities. A little bit about Forge. So we're a nonprofit. We do a lot more than just workforce development. That is one of our key pillars, but we also do resiliency about, hey, protecting the state. Cybersecurity is not just about firewalls and protecting your equipment or strong passwords. There's so much more to the word cyber, and AI in my background, military background, cyber and AI go hand in hand, just like data science, just like IT. It's all cyber to me. I work intelligence in the military. That's even cyber. This day and age, you can't do a job that doesn't require software and hardware. So we do a ton of different things in resiliency, and then we have innovation programs to help secure our critical infrastructure. We're doing some stuff with DoD, basically public-private partnerships across the board. But we're here to talk about AI. We did have an economic study done, the state paid for that about a year and a half ago. And here are some of the numbers: create 300 jobs by 2030 and $1 billion impact to the state. And we don't do this by ourselves. We do this with partners. We have partnered with OSD for a long time. We partner with universities. We partner with anybody and everybody. We always try to find a way to get to yes. And we are nimble, we're agile, and we're always opening up the aperture so that we can do more with other people. Still serving. I still feel like I'm serving like I did in the military. One of our guests had a summit. We do an annual summit, and there's a couple details at the end that we'll mention. But she came into town. I won't give you the agency she works for. I was impressed on how we work together with industry, with academia, with the public sector and private sector. And this is her quote. She has a really cool job. If you've ever seen one of the James Bond movies, so basically she works for science. She used to work, she retired now, for science and technology for one of the 3-letter agencies in the government. They had a problem, an operational problem. So their employees go overseas and kind of break the rules so they could change their uniform, their clothes in like 30 seconds, but they couldn't change their shoes. So they built some material, they just hit a button, their shoes changed color. And so those are the problems that she would solve. And that's kind of how we want to change things, right? So when there's a problem, you just figure out a solution. And that's what AI is going to help a lot with. So now I'm going to hand it over to Daniel. He's going to talk at high level fundamentals about some AI stuff and how that impacts everything.
Yeah, thanks for having us here, Stephanie. I know we had a brief conversation yesterday, but AI impacts everything. I know you're hearing it all over the news, all over YouTube, hopefully not TikTok. But AI does impact every single aspect of our life. There's a lot of misconception around what is AI, right? We've been using AI a lot of times. How many of you use Waze or Google Maps to get here? I know we did. So it's like, you're using AI in every aspect of your life anyway already. But so wanted to kind of give you the landscape of AI. So a lot of what we're talking about with ChatGPT, if you've used ChatGPT, that's an AI, right? But it's not the AI. And most people think that ChatGPT is AI. It's actually one tool in a very large toolkit. It falls under generative AI. It's a large language processing model. And so there's thousands of competitors of ChatGPT right now, if not tens of thousands, and are growing every single day. So ChatGPT fits into a very small bucket. And these are all the types of AI. So you have deep learning. We're going to show you a video today, really short video around deep fakes. You've probably seen this on the news as well, 60 Minutes, where people are taking people's faces and replicating them. And what's reality? We have an election coming up. There's, we have to be really careful about what we're watching and what we're seeing. So that's where deep learning comes in. Then you have machine learning, which is like predicting the weather. Again, Waze, Google Maps, being able to use machine learning to figure things out. As you predict the weather, you can affect every industry, crops, all of that. And so then you have artificial intelligence encompasses all of that. So these are all the types of AI. But the next slide shows you all the technologies that use all the types of AI. So if you look across this, where we got autonomous systems, pattern recognition, chatbots, robotics. So when we think AI, it's not just logging on to ChatGPT and then looking at one little tool. AI encompasses everything. How many of you still remember when the internet came out? And the internet came out and everybody was a little afraid of it, right? People said, I'll never put my credit card on the internet. And now we just swipe and it's not even a thought. I think that's kind of how it is with AI. Technology touches every aspect of this technology landscape. So these are all the types of technology, but they also use all the types of AI. I want to go to the next slide. And this is all the industries that use all the types of the technologies that use all the types of AI. Let's run through that one more time. So back it up. Far away. Yep. So these are all the types of AI. The next slide.
Oops.
This is all the technologies that use all the types of AI. And these are all the industries that use all the types of technologies that use all the types of AI. Anybody think this is a pretty big deal? So it's a big deal to us. And Forge's motto is forever one step ahead. I joined the team specifically because of Lee Watson's commitment to cybersecurity. He started the Venture Center here in Little Rock. He's always been ahead. He's always been pushing the envelope. And I met Lee in 2018. And we want to be on the forefront of helping the industry figure this out. So we got training programs, a lot of things going on. And we're part of this conversation today because we really think that industry has to be leading. And I think Arkansas has a real good chance to lead the way here from the middle of the country. This is the road to 100 million users for various platforms. So I want you to look down here at Netflix. It took Netflix 18 years to get 100 million users. It took Instagram 2.5 years to get 100 million users, YouTube 1.5. Hopefully none of you are using TikTok. And then ChatGPT. It took them 2 months to get 100 million users. The adoption of this technology is so rapid and so fast that if industry is not paying attention, we will get left behind. And so a lot of people are afraid of AI. Say, well, should we be afraid? I think a little bit. Yeah, we should be concerned. I was a little afraid of the internet and putting my credit card on there. There's some risk associated with that. But there's also a lot of opportunity. So it's not an either or conversation. It's a both and. The technology will impact us, but the question is, what do we do about it? How do we integrate it into our reality here? And then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've got a finance worker recently paid out $25 million after showing up on a Zoom call just like this. I know there's some folks zooming in, and there was a couple people. So their board showed up. It was not their board. It was not the CFO. It was not the CEO. It was somebody using a script and pictures of them from social media, and they wired 10 transfers of $2.5 million each, thinking that they were talking to a real person on the other side of the screen. And it was a deep fake technology, and they're actually $25 million after this call with the chief financial officer. So we have to be aware of these things, and if something's not right, we need to be. I'm not saying that to scare people. I'm just saying that there's an opportunity here for us to be aware of these things. But what do we do about it? How do we train the workforce? How do we train everybody from manufacturers to transportation to IT to healthcare? This is affecting every single industry across the country. This is the founder of LinkedIn.
Right.
You'll click that picture right there. Yep. This is a short 1-minute video.
I'm an AI-generated version of Reid Hoffman, his digital twin. I wrote a 336-page book. And how do you explain it in one sentence? To a smart person, to a 5-year-old. Now, for a 5-year-old, blitzscaling is like building the biggest tower super fast before anyone else, even if it gets a bit messy, so you can be the leader of the tower game. If I make a mistake about you, it's often because I misinterpreted the information you gave me, or I don't have the full context of your question. And I see mistakes as learning opportunities. There's a need for a framework that not only fuels innovation, but also ensures AI benefits are fairly distributed, all while focusing on enhancing public good. What are your thoughts on the ethical risks of AI digital twins, including privacy and consent?
Now, we are going to have to set rules of the road, and it is going to be important that, for private citizens, that there is guidelines, and even for public citizens, there are guidelines. Some people will be able to adapt with difficulty, and some people won't be able to adapt.
then who's responsible to help those that can't adapt or are having trouble adjusting?
I think the short answer is everyone.
Some people will adapt quickly.
No offense, but if you still think stocks, real estate, or
YouTube
crypto is
ads,
best passive income.
AI. Some people will adapt quickly, some people won't be able to adapt. The future is not about who will we use AI, it's about who will use AI, what we do for productivity, what we do to keep jobs, to multiply jobs. It's not, jobs will disappear, we're not what we're talking about here, we're talking about the fact there's gonna actually create more jobs. Robotics is gonna create more jobs, there's just a lot of opportunity here, there's also some risk associated with it, so we're kind of, as I said, working on both sides of that. And I have one final quote, and then Scott's gonna wrap us up with what we're doing in the AI world, and then kind of a little bit about our summit coming up. So this is Richard Baldwin, this was in Geneva, he made this quote in 2023. AI won't take your job, it is somebody using AI that will take your job. So the future of the world is not AI or humans. It's not either or, it's both and. So our goal and our mission, and thank you for inviting us here today, Stephanie, is to be able to have a conversation about what do we do to prepare the workforce to leverage AI to its maximum benefit and to identify the risk associated with it so that folks aren't getting in trouble. So that's kind of what we're doing, and then we can unpack a little bit about how we're going about that, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so Forge, like I mentioned earlier, we're a nonprofit. We're on the forefront of all of this. We're doing a lot of stuff I told you with universities. So we are partnering with some national labs as well, developing some capabilities and then testing AI models, not specifically in cyber, but that's our niche. But again, I use the word cyber very broadly. So when I say cyber, like I mentioned earlier, it includes spectrum management, it includes drones, it includes everything that's technology, advanced manufacturing, advanced logistics, all of that's connected. Program services that we offer on that first slide, the workforce services, the resiliency side of the house, the innovation, like we're leveraging AI into all those things. We're using it to help with our grants. We're using it to help with the Emerging Threat Center and Arkansas Cyber Defense Center that we run. Even the STAR-based program, that's the 5th grade STEM program out at Little Rock Air Force Base. Like we are paving the way because we're adapting this, we're pulling it into all of our programs. And then within the academy and how that helps all our divisions internally, but all the courses that we offer, we're adding AI into that. And we already have some outlines. We're pulling in experts, like Daniel mentioned, that are not just national experts, they're global experts that just, one of them just happens to live here in Arkansas. So we're leveraging that. He's on our advisory board. So we're really just figuring out ways that we can partner with people, make Arkansas the greatest state in the nation, and build out the workforce that our employers need. So I think the next is just some information about our summit. It's in October. We're actually running a simultaneous summit with the Attorney General. So it's October 4th and 5th. We're going to have some interesting breakouts that not everybody can attend, but it's going to be fantastic. So questions, comments, I think that's all we have. Q&A. Yes, sir.
Got a question for you. So I'm a manufacturer, I care about priorities would be increased sales, production efficiencies, maintaining, retaining employees, transportation. An example of how AI is going to impact my business. So for me specifically.
I would say, did you say transportation or like kind of like, so DHL implemented AI in 2019 and they were able to do way more efficient routes. I've been using AI in higher education with predictive analytics and manufacturing. You have a lot of data across your manufacturing line. So there's all those data points of like, how long does it take for this part to get from here to here? How efficient are your team? And so it's leveraging the humans that you have to leverage those tools to actually be more productive. So you can flag things that are happening on the line way faster. You're probably already connected to your manufacturing stuff. It's already connected at some level, right? So you've got a lot of data points. The problem is all those data points are disparate data points. So they're sitting in all these different systems, and AI actually connects all those systems and can read all those systems. And then that's the power and all the computing power that we have. I won't get into quantum computing and some of the things that are coming down the line. This is not an educational seminar. We don't want to geek out a little bit here, but to say that all those data points that you already have from sales, from your line, all of that can tie back into aggregating all of that data and then running analytics and modeling and then evaluating it to actually give you real-time feedback of what's going on the line, and then how employees are doing, all of that. And then I can talk sales all day long offline. You know, I can go down the rabbit hole there with you if you'd like. Does that answer your question? It's really like leveraging all the data points that we already have. And a lot of people don't think we have data, but it's all around us. And it's just how do we connect that data to make it actionable, get insights from it, and make smart decisions. I think that's probably the biggest benefit I would see in manufacturing.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what are some of the biggest intersections with AI and cybersecurity? What do you see an intersection?
I'm not saying it's everything, but it's connected to everything. I would say that my biggest concern around AI and cybersecurity, my background cyber and intel, is the reconnaissance piece. So when you look at the military background, I don't like to use the word kill chain, but there's a cyber kill chain. So you think of ransomware, right? So ransomware is usually instigated through phishing emails. Everybody does phishing training these days. Well, AI is going to make that phishing more difficult to identify because everybody has a public presence. They all have data online. They all know, like the AI people, bad people can learn who these, like your traits, your personality, and then they can leverage that against your friends or your coworkers. So it's going to be harder for us to identify whether or not someone is phishing us or if this is actually, you know, your buddy who said he was going to email me yesterday. So that's where I see the biggest challenge for users. But I don't know if that answered your question. But there's multiple other areas, right? So again, military background, it's a matter of national security as well. So we want to get ahead of the game with AI, just like like I said earlier, that's part of cyber. I love my country. And so this is a priority for me because this is a matter of national security. And we got to secure our companies, our American way of life, our critical infrastructure, or we're going to lose it.
And automated attacks, I would say too, is the acceleration. It used to have to be one-off attacks, one person behind a keyboard. Now they can create their own version of a ChatGPT and run automated attacks simultaneously across multiple devices. Microsoft, if you haven't seen it in the news in the last week, just announced that executive compensation is now going to be tied to how well their teams are doing with cybersecurity on all divisions. So their annual review, their compensation is now tied back to cybersecurity. So it's not just an IT problem, a cyber problem. It's also like it's a bottom line problem at the C-suite level as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great question.
Thanks for coming, and this is something as a board, we try to bring you, Arkansas, we want to be leading the way in all things workforce, and this is a big part of it. Our board, a few years ago, approved us investing in virtual reality training, and Arkansas is leading the way in that now, in education for career exploration as well as training. So thank you guys for being here. Yeah, go ahead.
So and I don't know if you have research on this, but in terms of education, what are some trends that you're seeing as far as incorporating AI into, you know, whether it's schools or higher education, and especially what other countries are doing? Because, you know, I think when I went to school and we didn't rely on the calculator, and then now all the kids have all the, you know, the scientific calculator now. So how is AI being incorporated?
Just like that technology, right? It just needs to be adapted into everything. Some people in here have heard me talk at other places, and I said, hey, everybody needs cyber to be cyber informed. So I would say that you could pivot that and say everybody needs to be AI informed. It should be integrated into all different aspects of career pathways and how that can be utilized, just like that graphic you had up. It should be a module or a part of all training, because it's everybody's responsibility to know how to probably ethically use it right, but also know some of the risks and some of the opportunities that it creates. I don't know if that answers the question.
I would check out Khan Academy. They're leading the way. Khan Amigo is their AI bot. So it's actually learning. My daughters are all homeschooled for a variety of reasons. But I'm actually using Khan Academy and some other ones that are developed, and actually they log all of their learning, all of their training that they do with them. And it's following my daughter as she's growing, and it will customize her learning adventure for her. So that's like, it's customized, I think, of the future, because we're all different, right? And it learns from our learning styles and all of that. So I definitely would check out that. And also education is like, I talked to ChatGPT. We were doing it on the way over here. You can talk to Chat, not to say AI is not ChatGPT, but you can talk to these tools and they can talk back to you. So I'm getting an education every day, learning new things just by interacting with AI on a consistent basis. So hope that helps answer your question. I know you guys got a lot to cover, so
Thank you.
we're happy to have more conversations in the future, but thank you so much for having us, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott and Daniel. All right, the next order of business is to get down to business. So we need to nominate a chairperson and a co-chairperson. Don't have a motion from the board.
Motion, chair. I make a motion that Kevin, chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next one's kind of tricky. It kind of makes sense. Welcome. You're now the chairperson. Would you like to give a sales job to the co-chair?
Stephanie, can you tell me who seconded the motion?
It was Kat Hamilton. I mean, why don't y'all have discussion? I mean, and I'll just tell you now, Kevin's our OG, our original gangster, the only one left from our original board. So we do all of the paperwork in terms of the minutes, and we'll organize all of this. Basically, we just need you guys to lead. We want you guys to lead our workforce project. We want you to collaborate with us. When I have a proposal on utilities, I'm gonna call this guy. When I have a proposal from UAPTC on manufacturing, I'm gonna get with Chris and Kevin. So you all kind of decide amongst yourself. Does anybody want to be the coach?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank each of y'all for serving. There's some great projects that are funded through this board. There's some good involvement. There's wonderful information. There's definitely some guidance that we're going to be able to provide in terms of who will speak, the information that we'd like for everyone in the room to hear. We've got some great people here who invested, put their time in, take time out of their schedule. So we want to make sure that we're effective with the information that the board's hearing and being able to make decisions and work toward funding in that. So first off, thank you all for serving. Look forward to it, and I really think there's some good stuff to come out of this. From a co-chair standpoint, if anybody would like to be involved, feel free to throw a name out there. I think we'll all work well together, and I think it would be an enjoyable experience for everybody.
You can volunteer.
Mr. Gaines, would you like to throw that out there? Would you like to do that? Okay. I'd like to nominate.
I'll second that.
All right. We've got our chair, Kevin, and our co-chair, Danny Gaines. All right. Next item of agenda is you guys are just going to have to trust us and to approve these minutes from December 13th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, I'm going to kind of kick off the meeting with an overview of OSD. What is OSD and why am I here? So Hugh kind of covered our main three things that we do. What we're most known for is investing in all forms of workforce. So that's kind of that middle circle there you see on the screen. So approximately $5.8 million is what we awarded to individual companies. So that's where you go onto our website, you say, I've got some short-term training. We approve those 365 days a year. In addition to that, from time to time, we have big industry sectors or a group of people who come together and they say, we've identified a skills gap. We invest in those projects. They can be from $500,000 to $3 million. Right now, when I do that, I actually just meet with Cody and Hugh and the Chief Workforce Officer, Mike Rogers. in the future, I anticipate bringing large projects to you guys because we want to hear from you. You're the employers, you know. So I anticipate if I have a proposal on my desk, I will contact. I've already told Kat. I have 2 healthcare type proposals on my desk. My idea is that I would have lunch with Kat and say, let's talk about this. What do you see? Is this a need? But then we would bring that to the full board, you as employers, because this is completely employer driven. So that's that's going to be one of your jobs, is to approve these the state's investment in workforce. The second thing is we're the Office of Apprenticeship. So by law, this board oversees the state electrical apprenticeship committee and the state plumbing apprenticeship committee. And today you're going to be asked to actually approve one of those committee members. That's one of your jobs on this board. It's a big initiative of the state right now to expand apprenticeship, and you're going to hear from my apprenticeship team on that shortly. And probably the third thing that we do that takes some time, and we're going to have some things to vote on today, is our technical centers. So our secondary area technical centers are where our high schools actually leave their campuses, and high school students leave their campuses, and they go on to these technical center campuses, and they learn a trade, a workforce training. It's all public school funding. So it's all from Ross and Secretary Oliva. But we actually make the decisions on that. We send those decisions on programming and enrollment over to them, and they pay those out. We work closely with Ross, and I can't say enough about the relationship that we have with education. They are always at the table. We collaborate well, and we look forward to that relationship. But one of your jobs is this board is you approve all centers and satellites, and we have a change that you will make a decision on. And you also, and this is the tricky part, this is going to be the fun part, you vote on the funding for these centers. And I'll talk about that a little bit later when we vote on that. So that's kind of a broad overview. What I want you to take away today is we're a small, mighty agency, but we're looking for leadership from you guys. And so we're agile, we're nimble, we want to meet employer needs, and the only way we know to do that is from advice from you guys. So I'm going to turn it over to the next agenda item, and we're going to start with apprenticeship. I want you guys to meet all of my team, so introduce yourself, guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark McManus. I serve as the Apprenticeship Expansion Coordinator for OSD.
My name is Derek Daniels. I am a program advisor for the apprenticeship office here.
You know, what I'll tell you is, and I have a biased opinion, so I'll just leave it at that. The registered apprenticeship is really the gold standard for work-based learning. And, you know, at its core, it combines related technical instruction, which is classroom training, along with OJT, on-the-job training. That comes together in a registered apprenticeship program for any given occupation. And really, it provides, you know, an opportunity to skill up new hires into roles that employers need. And it also can be used to bring in, you know, existing employees, incumbent workers into new roles into an organization that may need to be filled and grown within an organization. So there's a lot of opportunity within that model to both bring on new hires for roles as well as upskill existing workforce into more roles. As part of the registered apprenticeship program, there's a progressive wage scale. So registered apprenticeship can be anywhere from 1 year in length to multiple years, depending on the occupation. So within that time frame, there has to be at least one pay increase as an apprentice goes through their work process schedule, as it's known, the classroom training and the OJT, and they're meeting certain milestones and stage gates. They have to receive a pay bump as they're progressing in that role. This is really just kind of the core components of registered apprenticeship. Mentioned the classroom training, the RTI, the on-the-job training piece, but it all starts with the employer. I think we started kind of our conversation today talking about input from you all, the employers, and how that's so valuable. For registered apprenticeship, the employer is the foundational piece. You have to sign on to say, yes, this is the type of workforce strategy that we're committing to in order to fill the roles that are needed in our organization through the classroom training and on-the-job mentoring. I mentioned the progressive wage scale, that's a big part of it. There's also a national credential that's awarded through the Department of Labor for a individual that successfully completes the program. Now, that national credential can be a part of some additional industry certifications that can be embedded in a registered apprenticeship program, if that's a need of the employer. And also it can lead to some further post-secondary credentials like associate's degrees, et cetera. I'll tell you that we really, are building out a pretty robust ecosystem for registered apprenticeship expansion in the state. Getting our education partners involved, our community colleges, our other state agencies, just a variety of folks that are really part of the partnership that is growing the apprenticeship model in the state across a wide variety of industries and occupations. Really, we've had a strong history in our state and really across the nation with construction trades registered apprenticeship. That's kind of where it all started, right? With some of the licensed trades, electricians and plumbers of those occupations. In Arkansas, it's required that you have to go through a registered apprenticeship to receive your licensure for electricians and plumber occupations. But that's not the case, as we all know, in a variety of different occupations outside of that. But what we do know and what we're learning more and more as we're growing the model is it works. And it works in a variety of areas. So that's why we're gung-ho about trying to educate employers and partners around the benefits of it. Let me back up just a moment to make mention of back in 2015, Department of Labor made an unprecedented investment in registered apprenticeship. Never had done it prior to that. And that initiative was known as the American Apprenticeship Initiative. Since that time, there's been subsequent federal grant solicitations that have rolled out that states can opt in to apply for. And we've been fortunate in Arkansas to receive some of those awards over the years. Excuse me. And we currently have some grant applications pending with the Department of Labor through a program known as State Apprenticeship Expansion Formula grant through the Department of Labor. And that's where the Department of Labor has made a 5-year investment in growing out registered apprenticeship across the nation. As part of that, there's a base award and a competitive piece. The base award is really about helping to stand up and support states to build their infrastructure and capacity for its hiring staff or other resources that are needed to help working with partners and grow out registered apprenticeship in a variety of different areas. So we applied for the base. We also applied for the competitive piece, and we're hoping to receive both of those awards. Obviously, if we can get one of them, we'll still be happy. Those will be starting July 1. It's the time frame for that. I just give you these occupations as examples of some of the occupations where registered apprenticeship is growing in Arkansas. And I could list some others, but I didn't have enough slide to put it on. But I just want to tell you that the Department of Labor is about 1,400 approved apprenticeable, if that's a word, occupations that have the opportunity to fit this model. And we're just scratching the surface here in Arkansas, but a lot more to do and a lot more opportunities for employers to consider and think about in terms of their workforce development strategy going forward. This is just a snapshot to give you some idea of the different industry sectors that are being touched by registered apprenticeship today. There could be more that could be listed here. Covers manufacturing, healthcare, IT, transportation, the list goes on. But really, we see opportunities in some other sectors that aren't on the screen here, hospitality and transportation, the list goes on. So the model is just one that I think, needs to be sort of considered strongly by all of our partners and employers as another option to skill up workers. Derek, I'll let you say this one.
All right, guys, I deal with our, two grants, our traditional apprenticeship grant. We call that typically our TA, that's usually running, or our budget for that is 1.611 million plus. That is utilized around the state to reimburse apprenticeship programs for their instructor expense that they incur while they're providing that classroom training. And then for this year, for example, we had 41 programs with 120 locations around the state, serving over 5,300 apprentices. Also, I deal with our construction training grants, our CT grants. That's 800,000 a year. That is supplied by a 50 cent for every $1,000 of non-residential construction permits that are issued in the state of Arkansas. So with that, programs can submit a grant for that, and we are purchasing their student, reimbursing them at this point 100% for their student curriculum, their code books, their instructor books. We also do equipment that they can utilize within the classroom to help better provide training for those apprentices. And then also, we also have a train the trainer piece in there where they can get reimbursement for training of their instructors so they can do better in the classroom. And then also we have our some outreach that we do where they can go to these job fairs and so forth, different places around the state, and help try to get bring potential employees to their programs for their employers. We also have our non-traditional apprenticeship and grants, and that is on a case-by-case basis. And we provide up to 75% of the maximum RTI funding cost for that. So as you see, we try to help out apprenticeship as much as we can and try to spread the money around, especially with our program. Go ahead. Go. Usually our traditional apprenticeship with our TA, usually we're dealing with our construction trades. Of course, plumbers, electricians are our main licensed ones here in the state of Arkansas. And then, of course, we also have sheet metal workers, brick masons, millwrights, carpenters, iron workers. So there's numerous ones that we also service with those grants.
Thank you, Derek. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this initiative that kind of originated through our office, state certified pre-apprenticeship framework. For registered apprenticeship, the Department of Labor oversees and monitors that. That's not the case for pre-apprenticeship. Pre-apprenticeship really is opportunities for work readiness and preparedness, training, skilling up an individual to be successful in a registered apprenticeship program. So given that, pre-apprenticeship programs can have a pretty high variability in terms of their quality and the things that they're accomplishing, we felt the need to create some more standard and rigor around what a state certified pre-apprenticeship program would look like. So we built out a handbook. We have a link for it here. And really this, was some research that we had done over a period of time, looking at best practices from other states and learning from that. And then also building in to our state certified pre-apprenticeship guidance of what we'd like to see in Arkansas. Really, this is just sort of reiterating what I said around the purpose of it, to really have a good standard methodology for a state certified pre-apprenticeship framework. So the idea is that entities could apply to our office, the Office of Skills Development, and we would review that application and hopefully approve the application for state certification. There are some important ingredients to a state certified pre-apprenticeship, and that is that all the partners are committed to it. And we're actually requiring a sign-off from these partners. That includes participating employer, a participating registered apprenticeship sponsor that's responsible for the administrative activity of the program, and also the training provider, whomever that might be. It could be an employer in some cases doing their own internal training, or an outside vendor, a community college, et cetera. In the certified pre-apprenticeship program, there's really assurances that we wanted to build into this on both sides of the equation. You know, an assurance from an individual that participates in the program that, you know, why am I doing this? If I do this, what does it lead to? Well, it would lead to an opportunity and an advantage to move into a registered apprenticeship program, which is full-time employment. And why would that be? Because the employer has signed off. They say this is a value and we want, you know, our participants to complete and come to work for us, hopefully, through a registered apprenticeship model. The employer, you know, is getting a quality candidate, an individual that, you know, is just not off the street, that has some aptitude and shown, you know, some willingness and initiative, quite frankly, to complete a program, the pre-apprenticeship work readiness training, and sets them up to be successful in the registered apprenticeship. This is just the final takeaway. If you don't remember anything else about certified pre-apprenticeship, keep this in your mind, please. That, you know, it's committed employer partnerships. That's what it centers around, and all of those roles that are important with the registered apprenticeship sponsor, training provider, all of that comes together. And then also alignment to a route, registered apprenticeship program, because the idea is we don't want people just to train and not have an outcome. We want them to train, be successful, and move into a registered apprenticeship employment opportunity. This final slide, just our contact info, and I want to ask Nikki, raise your hand. Nikki's part of our team as well, so we're glad to have her. She's the newest member of OSD as well. So just pause here for a minute. If there's any comments or questions.
I'm curious, what are some of the occupations and fields that you're working with today that you weren't 5, 10 years ago?
A lot of the ones that I showed you, quite frankly. I mean, a lot in manufacturing that we weren't doing probably 5 years ago. You know, there seems to be a big need, industrial maintenance, machinists, those types of occupations. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity in healthcare. I hope, Kat, you're hearing that. There's things that I think could be taken advantage of there that perhaps we're not doing quite so much in Arkansas today. But it's really all of those, you know, non-traditional occupations, traditional being construction trades, plumbers, et cetera, electricians. So is that?
Yeah, and I guess the flip, go ahead. I'm
Oh, I
sorry.
was just gonna piggyback off that. I mean, anything around tech, cybersecurity, software development.
Yeah.
Front end, back end, diesel techs, right? 5, 10 years ago, we weren't talking about that. We weren't talking about anything that he mentioned around that. I mean, just recently this week, we had a request to meet with a group that's doing a national program around appraisals. And appraisals for farms and appraisals for rural properties and things of that nature. So, you know, I think back to the comments that were made previously, since at the federal level, they started making these huge investments. Organizations, employers, nonprofit groups, we're starting to figure out how do we start to layer this into our workforce training efforts. And now you're starting to see this adoption. And I'd be interested to see, you know, 10 years ago, I think, Mark, maybe you referenced 1,400 occupations now. I'd like to know, like, how many occupations were there 10 years ago and see that growth too.
And if I may, the flip side of that, has anything fallen off in that same period? Are you seeing occupations where there's just not the interest anymore and the programs are waning?
I don't know that I do, to be honest. Derek, you,
I can't make it any.
I think it's, you know, it's growing more and more. People are seeing the results of it, and it's just expanding. You know, I'm sure there's some casualties here and there, but not to scale.
You know, we took it off our slide that we had done last time. I want to say there's only 148 occupations that we were actually using here in the state of Arkansas. That high number that Mark mentioned.
Yeah.
So we have so much room for growth. We
Dipping
can,
our toe in the water.
yeah, we can get into all kinds of things.
Yeah, and
So just two unrelated questions. One, what's the biggest challenge to adopting apprenticeships? And then second, how do we Wait, with I think it's Arkansas Center for Data Sciences and their apprenticeship.
Yeah. So Danny, I would say probably one of the barriers, that we hear frequently from employers is kind of the administrative piece and the interaction with the Department of Labor. But there are ways to, sort of mitigate that through whoever takes the role of being the registered apprenticeship sponsor. So that's really where, that responsibility lies, and it could be perhaps a community college, it could be, a workforce board. It could be whatever entity has a connection and, wants to see the program be successful and has the bandwidth to deliver on all those administrative responsibilities.
And and there's work they have to do as a program sponsor. You're gonna have to be committed. You're gonna have to get in rapids and put all your apprentices in, keep the records updated, keep the files for over 5 years after they leave. There's multiple things that, normally, you as an employer, you're trying to do what you're trying to do, what you're trying to sell, what you're trying to make, so having that piece over there usually is kind of put off to the backside a lot of times, because, your main goal is what your company's trying to accomplish.
That's fair.
So, but of course, with that apprenticeship model, then you're gonna, as Mark alluded to, you're gonna have better qualified candidate. You're probably not gonna have to worry about turning around and hiring somebody else in a year and a half or 6 months, which, big revolving door going on right now in almost every occupation you look at. So with that apprenticeship model, hopefully that will keep those individuals engaged when they know they're getting this raise ever so often as they progress. They're gonna see, they're gonna know right from the very beginning when they get hired, what they're gonna make when they get done. And then of course, after that, you got your normal raises that might happen, but you're gonna see that progression from the start. And hopefully that will help keep your employees there and happy. And I'll be looking for something else.
And Danny, I'll speak to the ACDS piece. So the Arkansas Center for Data Science serves as an intermediary, sort of to take the burden off of the companies who have to do that paperwork with the Department of Labor. And you'll see in a later presentation, we do enable and empower them through investing in the Office of Skills Development to do that, to expand apprenticeships. Part of our success has been working with the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. So we work closely with them, and it's another one of our large-scale workforce projects that we invest in. All right, very good. We're going to transition now to sort of one of your jobs is to approve committee member, and I'll turn it over to Derek.
Yes, one of the other things I'm tasked with is I head up for OSD, our State Electrical Apprenticeship Committee, our State Plumbing Apprenticeship Committee, and the Arkansas Apprenticeship Coordination Steering Committee. I'm very busy the first week of the month. With our plumbing and electrical, those committees approve experience credit for individuals who are coming in from out of state, maybe the military, something like that. They're coming here to move into Arkansas and they're needing that license for electrical or plumbing. They are approving that experience credit. They also approve curriculum that those programs can then utilize and then use for our CT grants that we talked about, construction training grants just a minute ago. They approve that, and that is the curriculum that can be approved for reimbursement. So, we want to make sure we're paying for something that is actually beneficial to those apprentices in learning their classroom. So with our State Electrical Apprenticeship Committee, we have one open position right now. And you'll see we have Jim Burbage. He is wanted to become a member of said committee. He has worked for Gingrich Electrical for many, many years. He is also running a apprenticeship program at ASU Three Rivers now. He's big Washita Technical College down in Malvern. He runs that apprenticeship program full-time as the program sponsor and then works for Gingrich as well. We always bring all those people, we bring them to our committee, let them talk, ask questions and so forth. That way they get to know each other and, I always get their approval first before we proceed with coming to y'all to get the final approval. So for him, He'll be finished, we've already had all of our districts met, because of course, we gotta have members from all 4 districts whenever we appoint these members on those committees. And then also certain times, as you see, we have laid out in there kind of their positions as far as whether they're a master electrician, master plumber, et cetera. So him getting appointed will fulfill everything that we have left for the state electrical apprenticeship committee.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, Jim.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We've been waiting to do that for a while.
So is Jim.
All right, Lisa, I'm gonna turn it to you.
Hope I can hear who moved and seconded, but that's what we couldn't hear.
Okay.
I'm hoping we can get that on the recording. Secondary area technical centers. What are they? Well, here is a very formal definition that we find in our policy. A secondary area technical center is a public, secondary or post-secondary technical institution organized for the specific purpose of educating high school students in specific occupational technical programs. Stephanie pointed out that students leave their high school campuses and go to these centers that are located across the state. We currently have 31 centers. For a high school to be served by a center, they must be within 25 miles or 30 minutes driving time to the center. When centers were established, the very first centers, it was the Little Rock Center and the Fayetteville Center. They were established in September of 1964. So centers have been around for a long time. But the main reason is that there were programs, there was training that need to occur, but it wasn't financially feasible to establish these programs at every high school in Arkansas. For instance, welding, automotive service, automotive collision, advanced manufacturing. In that time, it was mainly machining. Those programs were too expensive. It required equipment that a local high school just could not afford. And so these technical centers were established. Of these 31 centers, 24 of them are located on post-secondary campuses, 2-year colleges primarily, and 7 of them are located on high school campuses. And as you can see, at one time we had schools that were not served. High schools, because of distance, they couldn't drive there, they couldn't meet that. And so one of our goals in OSD, one of Cody's goals when he was our director, was he wanted every school in Arkansas to be able to be served by a center. And so satellites came into existence. A satellite is an extension of the secondary technical center. And it's for the purpose, of course, to educate high school students or to target in on those students that are in an isolated area. We currently have 30 satellites. These can be located on a post-secondary campus or a secondary campus. They are provided and funded through a center. They can't stand alone. They are a satellite of an existing center. One of the keys is that it can't serve just one school district. It has to serve more than one. And all satellite locations, they have to make an application. Even if we wanted to add a new secondary technical center, those all have to be approved by you, the board. if you will look in your packet, board members, you will find that you have a directory. It shows every secondary center. It shows all the satellites that are affiliated with that. It gives you the director and their contact information and the programs that are offered at each center. Now, one of the questions you might have is, well, how are these funded? Well, the centers are funded based on enrollment. A vocational center A is public school funding that is calculated by the Office of Skills Development and distributed by the Department of Education based on a secondary technical center's eligible full-time equivalent FTE count. Now, each fall and each spring, secondary centers submit to OSD enrollment reports. And the enrollment is listed by program of study. Then our office goes into the state database for the high schools that are across the state, and we verify the enrollment numbers. Once the enrollment is verified, then that information, we calculate the payment, and then that information is sent to the Department of Ed, and they process the payments. And these payments are sent directly to the vocational centers. There is no cost for these students to attend these centers. Many of these students, I would say, especially since the ones that we got 24 on post-secondary campuses, many of these students earn not just high school credits, but they're also earning concurrent post-secondary credit. Even the ones that are on high school campuses, many of them have worked out, they have memos of understanding with a local two-year college, and they're awarding post-secondary credit. Our goal is for these students to be able to, they have a valuable credential. They've earned something they can either continue on and with their post-secondary career, or they can go straight into the workforce. Just to give you some numbers, and right now, the centers are reporting to me the number of college hours that were earned and certificates of proficiency, the technical certificates, even an AAS that might be earned. Last year, in 22-23, a total of 35,347 college hours were earned by students that attended secondary centers. 1,736 certificates of proficiency were awarded and 44 technical certificates. And I predict that this year it'll be even more. Also, in addition to these college credentials, they get industry credentials. Last year, 8,428 different credentials were awarded to students across our centers. I think that's pretty impressive. We're working hard to make sure that the education and training that they receive is the type that is needed in the workforce. Funding. This FTE, I got off track, sorry. ADE considers a full-time equivalent at 6 hours, 6 classroom hours. But a student cannot attend a center for a full FTE. The maximum that they can attend a center is for 3 hours per day. They can also attend for 2 hours or 1 hour, whatever works into their schedule. But when we are calculating funding, we're always looking at a half of an FTE. Now, here's something that you might not know, but you probably should know. When a student leaves their high school campus and goes to the center, it's like they never left. Their enrollment, say they're gone for 3 hours or 3 classes. The local school district still counts them for those 3 hours. So it's really a good thing for the local school districts. They don't have to hire an instructor for those students. They can go to the center. And it's kind of we've always said, it's a bonus. It's a bonus because they get to count the funding. I mean, just like they're there all day, but yet they're going somewhere else. However, the local districts do have to provide transportation. They do have that expense. But other than it costs them nothing for the students to go to these secondary centers. Now, in terms of funding, prior to December of 2019, students were funded no matter what program they were in at the same amount. It was basically $6,227 per FTE in 2019. Prior to 2019, we started looking at, OSD started evaluating and looking at the programs. Were we spending our money wisely? Were we getting the bang for the buck? Does that make sense? Were we actually spending money in areas where industry or workforce needs were focused? We started looking at that, and so we decided to look at a tiered funding system. The tiered placement is based on the program of study that the students are enrolled in. And this funding system was established based on the needs and cost of the individual programs, along with the workforce needs in our state. Funding amounts and the programs within each tier can be adjusted, but it will take, when that happens, takes a vote from the approval from the CEWD board. You must approve that, just like the board had to approve this tiered funding model. You have to approve any changes that are made to it. Here are the current tiers, the programs under each tier, and the amount per tier. Advanced manufacturing, which includes electronics, industrial technologies, precision machining, manufacturing, automation and robotics, automotive service, aviation technology, construction technology, including HVACR, medium heavy truck technology, power equipment, re-engineering and welding, all fall under tier 1. Tier 1, it's $8,000 per year per FTE, or $4,000 per semester. Tier 2 programs include architectural and engineering and automotive collision repair technology, all the computer science programs, which include engineering, cybersecurity, data science, networking, programming and robotics, emergency services, firefighting, LPN, medical skills and services, nursing services, and UAS, unmanned aerial systems, are all part of tier 2. These programs generate $5,500 per year per FTE, or $27.50 per semester. Some people always say, there's a huge demand for nurses. Why is that in tier 2? Well, because the enrollment in the medical programs across the state is huge. Huge. If we funded that in tier 1, there'd be no funding left for any of the other tiers. And that's basically why it's tier 2. It's just because enrollment is huge. And also, we wanted to encourage enrollment in the tier one programs. We want students, advanced manufacturing, that field. We wanted to try to encourage centers not to get students in those areas. And tier three has two programs. Criminal justice and culinary arts, $3,000 per year or $1,500 per semester per FTE. Stephanie is going to analyze, give you an analysis of funding and how it's progressed, how it's changed. But I can tell you, centers enrollment is growing. This past year, we had in the fall 10,628 students. In the spring, we had 9,657 students. Enrollment is growing. And with that comes the need for funding. And Stephanie can talk to you about that.
All right.
If you have any questions about our centers, we're proud of what's going on. That Fayetteville Center is now Northwest Technical Institute, and it's actually located in Springdale. And the Little Rock Career Center is now Metropolitan Career and Technical Center, and it's still located in Little Rock.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. Got a couple things that, first of all, we got to vote. On March 14th, one of our centers, or one of our largest centers located on a high school campus, Conway, notified their satellite at Quitman that they would no longer be serving them as a satellite. I was not aware of this. I was contacted by the Quitman School District, and just to give you a little history of Quitman, they can't go to Conway because it's too far, quite frankly. And on that Quitman campus, they have a wonderful construction program where every year their students are able to build a home. They auction that home off, and this year they auctioned that home off for $121,000 for a $44,000 profit. Now, was I going to let Conway be the decision maker to make that program shut down? Absolutely not. But we had a solution within 24 hours. I contacted the superintendent and the principal who is here today in attendance and in support of this. I said, I want to make this happen. So I was able to contact ASU Searcy, which is another one of our centers, and say, could you be the host? Could you be the center for this wonderful program at Quitman High School? And so the infrastructure is already there. Quitman was able to hire the very person who's been running that program for the last few years. We're very proud of this program. It's a legacy program. In your packet, you have a letter where Conway notified Quitman that they would not be serving them any longer. And then you have the MOU, the memo of understanding that was just signed, I believe, yesterday, where the equipment is going to be transferred and the profits from the home that was built to be transferred to ASU Searcy. I need your vote to transfer the Quitman satellite from Conway Center to ASU Searcy. This is a great win for Quitman. Their students are now going to have access to not only this skills to start a career, but they're also going to be getting in the future concurrent credit, college credit at no cost to them. Now, I will say they also had a program there for nursing and medical professions. Now those same students will be able to go to ASU Heber Springs, which is fairly close to Quitman, and go onto their campus, have those college labs, and be able to get concurrent credit as opposed to just a high school elective from the Conway School District. So what started my day on March 14th as kind of a challenge turned into a really great win for both Quitman, ASU Searcy, and OSD, and we felt really confident about that. But we do need the board's approval to make that transfer. And I just want to welcome to the board meeting today. We have the chancellor of ASU, BB, Jennifer Methvin. She has her Jackson Goodner, who's one of her deans, and then Michael Stacks is from the Quitman School District. And just welcome them and thank you for your dedication to workforce. So,
Make a motion to accept the transfer of satellite campus.
Second.
does anybody have any comments or any questions about that?
Good job. Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, well now, the tricky part, guys, and at least I'm gonna let you drive this. I'm not gonna get up. So it was my original intention today to ask you to change the tiered funding. But I think that is a little bit premature. So let's just go over the funding. So, where were we in 1920? In the fiscal year 1920, before we changed the funding, 18% of all of our funding went to programs that didn't align with workforce. It was things like graphic design, cosmetology, different things. And so this board wanted to incent our programs to get students to go to those high wage, high demand jobs. But along with those high wage, high demand jobs, they're also high cost to run them. So if you look at the percentages there, what would have been at the time, tier one programs, only 39.18% of students were attending those programs. So if you fast forward to 2021, once that tiered funding change was made, we go to almost 44% of tier one programs, because of course people follow the money, right? And every single new program that was requested to begin that year, that were all tier one programs. Nobody asked for a criminal justice or a culinary arts program. Every single request was for these tier one programs, which is what we want. We want to drive students. It's not fair to have students come and be trained for 2 years and things where they're not going to be able to find a job at the end. So I feel really proud of the work that this board did in making that tiered funding. But let's fast forward. Let's go to 21, 22. We're now at 47% of all of our FTEs are now attending tier one programs. And so last year we were at 50, and 22, 23, we went to almost 50% of all of our students are now in tier one programs. That is because we put the emphasis where our board told us that there were skills that were needed. And so a lot of these students are earning credentials. They're going directly into the workplace. Often they're going into the workplace, but they're getting their education paid for by their employers now. And that's a win for families and students as well. So this year, wow, what happened? We're now at over 50% of tier one programs, but now here's where we're going to come from. Here's the challenge. I'm not going to call it a problem. It is a challenge. This year, our funding that we had to fund to these students and these centers was 23.699. Unfortunately, the budget from the public school fund was 21.816, which left a deficit. And so we saw at the beginning of last year, we had a problem. So Secretary McDonald and Secretary Oliva, I think Ross was in the meeting, the governor's office, and we met together, and Secretary McDonald said that we would, at Commerce, we would make up that difference because we felt so strongly in these programs. So this year, speaking with Ross, we have upped the budget to $23.2 million for the coming year. So as opposed to 21.8, we found more money. Now we're at 23.240 million, I think is what that is. But when I do my analysis based on what we are looking at in terms of growth, I just say we have 10% growth in each tier. Then we're looking at a budget or a funding of $26 million, which leaves a $2.8 million deficit. Now, that's supposing a 10% growth. I don't know that it's going to be that. I believe it's going to grow. So when I first began thinking about this board meeting, I thought, I'm going to ask you guys to reduce the funding. But I think I'm not going to. I want you to see this. I want you to understand, you have to understand the looming problem that we have. But we're going to pay it because we pay these on a semester basis. So in the fall, once we have those enrollment numbers, and I know what those enrollment numbers are, when we meet again in October, I can give you exactly, this is what we paid out and this is what we need. Now, going to the next slide, you can see the increases in enrollment. So if you look at the enrollment increase, it went from 3,105 FTEs, not students, to 3,609. The funding went from 20.2 to 23.7, call it. So you see the increase. So let's move forward to possible solutions. The best solution, I'm looking at you, Ross, and you can relay this to the secretary, would be to increase the vocational center aid funding during the session. And long-term, that has to be done. I believe when the last time we met, and I did this analysis, I said we need 26 to 28 million dollars in the fund moving forward. And here we are, it looks like we're gonna need $26 million next year. So that's one of the solutions, but that's a solution that this board can't necessarily do, but you can certainly help us as employers, to speak with, ADE and Ross's team, as well. Another possible solution is to reposition the programs within the tiered structure. So we could move some of the tier 1 programs to tier 2 programming. I'll just tell you that welding, when I do the numbers statewide, when I look at total funding on welding and total costs, the centers are able to make a profit there. But here's the deal, they have to make a profit, guys. They have to make a profit in some of these funding mechanisms because they have deficits in others. So when I talked to the center directors and I said, what about if we reduced welding? They depend on welding because welding has high enrollment because a lot of ag kids, a lot of your FFA kids, a lot of students know about welding. They want to do that because they sensed it's a good career. So I'm hesitant to do that, but that's another solution. Another solution would just be to reduce the amounts per tier. So reduce 8,000 to 7,000, reduce 5,500 to 5,000, reduce 3,000 to 2,000. That's another solution. The other thing we could do is to cease funding to programs not aligned with workforce development priorities. I can tell you that the tier 3 are not priorities when you look at AEDC and the state workforce priorities. Not to say that being in hospitality or culinary or the criminal justice system, those are noble careers. Are they where our priorities are right now? So, but if we cease funding to those tier 3 programs, that only saves us a little over $1 million. So I've given you a lot of information to put in your head and be thinking in October, we're gonna have to make some difficult decisions in terms of solving this problem. Now, it could be that when we meet with the Secretary McDonald, he may say, let's make it up one more year. If we know that ADE is going to be able to solve the problem long-term, we want to be a part of workforce. At OSD, we want to be a part of the workforce solution. And if this is part of it, I think the position is we did it one time last year, and this funding is really for employer-driven workforce projects, not so much public school funds. But as a board, that's going to be your big priority in October. Yes, Lee.
So I'm a little fuzzy here on funding. I mean, I see the numbers you put in front of me, or is this based on on your appropriation? It sounds like Hugh has the ability to make some of this up. It seems like DOE has a role in it. Tell me the numbers that we're seeing here that you report, is that based on the budget that's been approved by the legislature?
Yes. So, and Ross can speak to that.
So vocational center aid is public school fund. I mean, so ultimately that 23,240,000 that's gonna come in this year comes out of public school fund. In the public school fund, we always use the term, there are two pots. There's the big pot that most of us as Arkansans taxpayers know, that is the really large pot that funds all of our public schools. And there is a smaller pot that has other pieces in it. It's where a lot of categorical type of things come through, which is things that our state, typically our legislator has decided these are important things we're going to fund. And so that is where all of our public school fund, that is career education, comes into play. And so really, when that money comes down, there's only about 26 million that comes to career education.
Okay.
We give 23 million of it to vocational center aid. The other part is left for our 200, almost 300 public school districts, because they are required an accreditation to still have career and technical education on their campus. So we have what we call the 3x3. They have to have 3 programs in 3 different areas, and that's required for them to be accredited every year. And so we have a very small pot of money, about $3 million, that is there to help offset starting those programs. And then that is it, that comes from state funding for schools for career and education. So really, when we look at that pot, I know Stephanie and I've had a lot of conversations around this, and we go, yes, we need 26 million, but that's about all we get holistically from the state for state funding. The rest of our career and technical education funding and our public schools is funded through our federal dollars we receive, which is Carl D. Perkins funding. So we get about 14 million, and that's shared between higher ed and secondary, and a 75-25 split right now. And so that's something that it's funded at an even smaller amount. And to the K-12 side, we push about 8 million of that out to them, and that's serving about 300,000 students that are enrolled in class, which is a duplicate count. Because that is serving from grades 5 through 12, because in the Fed's eyes, this begins in grade 5, where obviously, when we look at what Stephanie and them are serving, I mean, it's heavy 11, 12, we do pull a little bit of 10, every once in a while random ninth grader, but mostly grades 10, 11, 12. So that is, you know, an appropriated amount, but knowing that the vast majority of what comes from the state is going straight into vocational center aid.
Is there any data on retention or fields chosen by students where they go into a field or stay in a field?
You know, that's really hard. So most educators will tell you once they leave that facility, it's hard for them to to know the outcomes. And that's my greatest source of frustration in workforce, is trying to figure out those outcomes. So did those students who took a construction class, did they go work for Navos or another construction company? Did the student who went into diesel tech, were they able to get a job and stay in that field? I would say the answer in those tier 1 programs, if a student is taking those programs, let's face it, those are tough classes. On a college campus, if you take manufacturing or any kind of technical course, it's tough. So I would say that most of those students do stay in the field. As opposed to your tier 3 programs, in the afternoon of your senior year, if you want to go cook in the afternoon, it's just fun to learn to cook, and it's a good skill to have. But did those students go into hospitality or culinary? Probably not. The same with criminal justice. It's interesting to high school kids to think about, you know, the FBI, or to think about, they watch CSI on TV. That's interesting to them. So maybe they take those classes. Do they go into law enforcement? We don't have any data, empirical data, but we also don't have it for the other programs. But I can tell you, for instance, in our medical programs, so we have an initiative right now where we are funding our high school students who do medical in their centers to get their LPN at the same time they graduate from high school. So they are a licensed practical nurse at the time, the summer after they graduate from high school. Those students are dedicated students who go to the center to get a license to become a nurse. And we know those students are going, and a lot of the medical students are. But are all the students, you know, it's one of our largest programs is medical. Are they all going in the medical field? Obviously not, because we have shortages in the medical.
Lynn and Ross's information together, the enrollment increase and the funding increase was greater than 10%.
Yes.
So where would we get the funds above and beyond what's being appropriated? Where do those funds come? If we want to.
Senator, have you guys nailed that down there yet?
Yes.
Well, and this year it came from the OSD training fund. And, you know, I've talked with the senator about that. That's not what this fund was ever meant to do, was to subsidize the public school fund. And I feel strongly about that. However, I believe that we're doing good work on these centers. And so that's why, before I come to you in October at our meeting, I will have met with Ross and the Secretary of Education and Secretary McDonald to come to a solution.
You brought up welding. I'd like to bring that up just for a second. I think a lot of emphasis here in Arkansas has been put on the steel industry. And I sure would hate to see Northeast Arkansas kind of be slapped in the face a little bit about us not supporting that welding industry, because that is a key development in Northeast Arkansas, as well as some of the institutions that supply that teaching for those welders. Secondly, the funding into the institutions are already strapped for money. How in the world can we go to them and tell them to make these departments available for students, but not yet support them in the ever rising cost for getting these students what they need? Diesel mechanics are very expensive. Welding's very expensive. Nursing's very expensive. So, Senator, You know, when we talk about these industries, these are not cheap industries. And I think that we need to look at those cost factors when we do look at those budgets and, to see where we are putting them.
I appreciate that sentiment very much. And I will tell you, you're gonna see a little bit later in the last presentation. In addition to the vocational center aid funding that we do at Office of Skills Development, when we're talking about investing, we're investing in community colleges. And you're gonna see some of those projects. As you know, Butch, we invested at ASU Cersei in that DEFL
That's right.
program. We have invested at UAPTC to the tune of $1.8 million this year in their advanced manufacturing. So vocational center aid funding is not all they get from our office. So we are doing large scale workforce projects within these programs. But if you think about these individual programs, they're using this funding to pay an instructor, to buy the supplies, to upkeep the equipment for these high school students to come onto campus.
Right.
So your point is well taken. I don't know what the solution's gonna be. I'll know more than I know right now in October. Yes.
Can I have one piece? That-
Yes.
And it's really not, it does not make the situation necessarily better, but I think it's worth sharing, but I also think it's a good problem to have. So obviously with, the passage of LEARNs and as we get moving to really heavy implementation this coming school year, obviously there were pieces this past year, but heavy this year. There's a lot of changes coming in the expectations of our schools and what a graduate looks like from their high school. And a big piece of that is readiness and how do we demonstrate readiness? Because we can demonstrate that they have an academic skill set because we give them a diploma based off of the number of credits. We don't really have a readiness factor. And so that's a new requirement that's in place that will roll forward to our schools beginning this next school year. It's a heavy emphasis with our freshman class, so the class of 2028 that starts this fall. But it rolls in immediately and schools begin making those changes with their upperclassmen throughout the process. So what I know that's going to do is we had to put together through the Department of Commerce was involved in the work as well. We had to identify pathways we have in our school that are high wage, high demand. And they really mirror Stephanie's list of her tiered funding. And so with that, those are pathways students can take. There's a requirement of schools having them offered. One of the ways they can be offered is through their secondary career centers. So I anticipate us seeing an increase in enrollment because schools have this requirement and expectation in there. And so it's a good piece and it's having our school leaders really rethink some of the things, some of the programming they offer, but at the same time, when Stephanie discusses, she anticipates an increase in enrollment. I know we will see some increase in enrollment because this also will come into their school accountability, so their school letter grades. And so it's impact into that. There is opportunity for them to earn additional points to say in the system through their readiness factor. And so that becomes very important to our school leaders as well. So I know it will have an impact, especially this coming year, but over the next few years, we'll see it grow. So I think it's important to know because I don't want Stephanie to come in October and it be like an even bigger percentage and be like, well, what happened? What has changed? I want you all to have that understanding that we will see that. This is all very fresh to our school administrators. And again, it's starting mostly with our freshman class, but we'll see some of them that are proactive and move it even faster. But we will see over the next 4 years a trend of probably even more enrollment to those centers. Because it's a great option and we're really having some heavy alignment to those programs moving forward. So I think it's just important for the board to know that.
Now the fun part, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
Mr. Ross, with what you just said, would you say maybe completing one of those pre-apprenticeship programs there at school would factor into that readiness?
Yes, so that actually is part of what we have in their, students have to provide a demonstration of their readiness. And so actually, the very last one on the list is that pre-apprenticeship leading to a registered apprenticeship is one of our elements we have listed as. There's multiple ways for demonstration. It can be early post-secondary credit. It can be through different credentials that fall on the state's approved list. But then one of those is that pre-apprenticeship leading to a registered apprenticeship. So
I'm going to be talking to a program here probably after July, 1st of July. They have just been in the process getting a youth apprenticeship program added over here at ABC here in North Little Rock. Now, of course, now that's set up where these apprentices are actually full-fledged apprentices, are still in high school, finishing their schooling up, but you know how it is, people getting their 12th grade year, don't even got to go half a day a lot of times because they already got their credit hours met. So, with what they're wanting to do by the youth apprenticeship, they will go in from there and go and work as a plumber or electrician. Have that license already in hand from Department of Health, Department of Labor and Licensing, and just be able to continue through. So that's good to hear. I feel like that kind of helped out there as well. Now, I know his stuff was, I think, primarily they were gonna be dealing with a lot of the homeschool kids. With what they do, because they actually have a lot of them that they deal with over there.
That's Veronica.
I have a question. So do employers, I guess, I mean, if you're in the school, you know about these programs, but our employers, do you promote it around employers?
Yes. Yes, and that's one thing I would like to, I always tell our centers, I would like for our centers to put the employment agencies out of business. Hopefully, employers are going to our centers in March and April and saying, give me the good ones, who's graduating that's ready to go. That is really, and again, it goes back to Hugh's first comment. The customers are not the students, the customers are our employers. So we're trying to serve you as employers. We're trying to develop a product. The product is this workforce, these students who are coming out ready.
And the reason I ask is because, and we can talk offline about this, but yesterday, and this perspective opened a lot, my eyes in terms of like, okay, what's going on? But the governor had a roundtable of Hispanic business owners from all over the state yesterday, and one of them is the owner of several restaurants in Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville area, and a farm and all these things. And so he's a culinary chef. He has training experience, and he said something that is frustrating for him is they were talking about education in general, and he was talking about infrastructure, that there are some schools because of the funding that have very poor infrastructure. And like for him, when he's doing these competitions or he's bringing in students, it's not apples to apples because they don't have the same opportunities, if you will, I guess. So like for me, I would love to connect him to you for that program because he can reach out and say, hey, I need chefs, because, and that was their number one problem. Like we spend so much money in training people and just that turnover, but he's looking for chefs and really mentoring and creating this culture. So anyways, just food for thought and like perspective, but we can talk offline about it and I'll be happy to connect.
That's wonderful. And that's our goal, that employers would go to our centers, our 7-year area technical centers to find.
Yes, because he could just go directly there instead of wasting his time and money.
Yeah. Now we're gonna talk about the fun stuff, guys. Some of the stuff that we have invested in terms of workforce projects, and Kevin had told me he was gonna have to leave early today, which is why. So I want to introduce you to Carmen Jackson. She is our wonderful grants manager. She's the one that we call on the phone and have a question about our grants. You talk to her with her beautiful voice. So Carmen, take it away.
Okay, so today I will be discussing 3 different areas: our grant categories, along with I want to shine some light on our increase in our funding and also our grant submissions, and then also I want to clear up some of the misconceptions about our grant process. Okay, so OSU Workforce Development Grants. So the primary objective here is to invest in our workforce through helping businesses offer training for their employees. And it keeps the state work up to date, and also it gives us a competitive advantage. So our grants, we primarily focus on 3 grant categories. Majority of those are customized technical, but we have customized technical, professional development, and growth. So with customized technical training, it is defined as technical training tailored to specific industry, skills, or equipment. This is approved and reimbursed at 75% of the total project cost. The maximum annual funding is $250,000, and the example would be the hydraulics training. Next will be our professional development training. This is considered essential soft skills or core academic skills training, just depending on the requirement of that position. This one is approved at a lower amount than the customized technical, which is 50%, and applicants will receive also a lower maximum funding, which is $50,000. Example here would be Excel or Lean training. And so last, we're going to talk about the grower owned training. And so this one is for Arkansas-based companies with no more than 250 full-time employees. This one is also approved at 75%, the same as the customized technical. However, this one, the maximum funding is different for this one, so this one is $1 billion. A company that will qualify for this type of training would be I looked up Cypress Valley Meats, and they're located in Bologna, Arkansas. It's 155 employees. So next, we want to talk about the funding awarded per year, and this is over 8 fiscal years. So when OSD first began in fiscal year 16-17, we awarded 1.7 million. And of course, you see over time, it has fluctuated up and down, and of course, you know, the pandemic had an effect on this as well. Our current fiscal year 23-24, we are now up to $5.8 million, and so that is a difference of $4.1 million. And so along with this, of course, if the awarding increased, grant submissions also increased. So in the first year, in 16-17, we only received 185 submissions. And so now when I close it out, we are up to 583 grants. So the difference is 398 submissions. So with having so many submissions, we want to streamline our process because we were doing it, initially the process was the applicant would go to our website, they would download the PDF document. After downloading it, they would fill it out and submit it to the OSD email address where they would have to wait for us to manually review the application and then send a confirmation email. However, we're now we got together myself, Stephanie and Bonnie, and we decided to go with submittable. So submittables, they're known for saving you time and making the most impact. And I think they have done just that. So with the process, with submittable, it's definitely been a game changer. So for myself as the grant manager, I'm able to manage the applications. I'm able to make notations, but most importantly, I can communicate through the platform. I don't have to use my email. I truly don't have to call them. And so everything is there. For our committee members who are the ones that are approving, denying, or undecided on the grants, they're able to go in. They can make notations, review the application for the meetings. And also it has been great because we have everything in the platform. So as far as audit or if any company wants to know their information, we have documentation within the platform. So I did not put it in my slide, but there are a few things that I want to talk about that misconceptions about the grants.
Go back one. There,
Uh-oh. Going the wrong
there
way.
you go.
Okay, there. So a few misconceptions. First things first, anyone can utilize the OSD grant application. You all can, for your business, can utilize it. You would just need to dispose it in a contract and grant disclosure form. Also, we do not have a cutoff date. 365 is when we accept applications every single day. There's no cutoff, no date, no time. And lastly, we do not have a suggested or approved list of training providers. Companies can select their own training providers. And I think I was short and sweet and to the point. Do you all have any questions for me? Thank you for your time.
So again, these are just individual businesses can apply for grants, and it's funny as yesterday I met with a company and it was based in Michigan, and she was saying, I need to know the cutoff dates, and like, when do you open up your RFPs for your grants? And I know there's got to be something on the fiscal year, and I was like, at OSD, you can apply for a grant when you need it as a business. The state fiscal year doesn't, I know, always align with what you need as a business, so I'm really proud of that fact. So she was just like, well, wow, Arkansas's got it going on. So I'm really proud of that as an agency, and I'm proud of the growth that we've seen. And if any of you as individual businesses have training needs, of course, you're all qualified. You're able to, you're all eligible for these grants. You just have to disclose that you're our board member. So, all right. I'll just say this. So when Cody was left us briefly at OSD back in October, I was named the director. And so I did my job, and my old job as associate director until just recently when I finally was able to hire someone to be the associate director, which is Bonnie Casey. And Bonnie's going to tell you about some of our large scale workforce projects. These are the projects that in the future, I'm going to be asking you guys to give me your subject matter expertise on and your decision on whether to invest in some of these projects.
Last and not least, so many of you have met downstairs. For those of you I didn't, my name is Bonnie Casey. I'm the Associate Director here at the Office of Skills Development. Prior to being the Associate Director, I was OSD's Fiscal Officer. So coming from a finance background, I want to start here with our budget. And I know it's been said before, but it really cannot be stressing of how lean we are here at the Office of Skills Development. As you can see, this is our year-to-date expenditures. And as Stephanie just said, our year ends June 30th. So this is everything we spent. As you can see, our administrative cost is less than 5%. And while that is always the goal in state government, that rarely happens. So it is really a testament to the leadership here at OSD. And really a testament to how much we do believe in the mission and our goal, which is economic achievement for the state of Arkansas and its workforce. And at the Office of Skills Development, we partner with a variety of businesses from Arkansas manufacturers to institutions of higher learning, and we even collaborate with healthcare associations. I prepared a list of just a few of our 2024 large-scale workforce projects. And workforce projects are different than grants in the fact that they may be awarded this year, but definitely most of them are not going to be paid out over the course of a year. They are paid out over the course of 2, sometimes even 3 years. And I've just picked a variety of some of the ones that just kind of give you a general knowledge of what we do here. The Arkansas Community College Association was awarded a little over $2 million this year for fiber broadband workforce initiatives. They basically manage our grants for VR headsets and fiber broadband. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, so because we're a small agency, and Andrea Henderson, who arrived a little bit late, I want to introduce you all to her. She is the executive director of the Arkansas Community College Association, and then her assistant Kyla Waters is here. She's who manages these grants. So we knew that when all these fiber projects are coming in, we were going to have workforce put that in. So we created the Fiber Academy, and that's managed through the association because 3 of our community colleges actually take care of that training. And then when this board decided to invest in VR headsets across the state, we needed somebody to manage that. So the Community College Association stepped in and did that. So we were able to fund them to kind of oversee that project, and we'll be giving you updates on all of these projects at the next meeting. This meeting, we're just going to be kind of tell you what we do, and the next meeting, you're going to hear about some of these success stories.
And then Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, we touched on earlier, they were awarded $1.1 million for the expansion of IT apprenticeship. Associated Industries of Arkansas were awarded $1.8 million for the Be Pro, Be Proud initiative. UALR awarded a little over $1 million for cybersecurity, their cyber alerts program. And then Northwest, that was our biggest award investment this year for workforce training. They did a lot for construction and equipment with their ammonia refrigeration. And this is a large project within the entire state. So we talked about this earlier yesterday.
Yeah, so NWTI has, of course, they're sitting in Northwest Arkansas. They're just right in the middle of where all the training is needed. And they have been working on their ammonia refrigeration initiative for years. We've already invested millions of dollars, the state has, and we're finally bringing that to a close this year. We have companies all over the state who are leaving the state. They're going to Kansas, to Garden City, Kansas, to get ammonia refrigeration training. And I get the grants for them on the OSD grant side, so it kills me. So hopefully within 6 months, all of the companies in Arkansas are going to be able to get that training inside the state of Arkansas. Also, we're going to be a regional hub for people to come, because why would you go to Garden City, Kansas, when you could come to Northwest Arkansas and for your training if you're from Michigan or if you're from, Wisconsin. So we feel like this is going to be a huge, just a shining city on the hill for training there in Northwest Arkansas. And that's why we're investing a lot, but we are going to have some outcomes to show you hopefully by next summer.
UA Classic Tech was awarded a little under $700,000 for your diesel equipment modernization. ASU Mountain Home was awarded almost $900,000 for boat manufacturing. Arkansas Healthcare Association. While this was not a very big award, it was $332,000 for medical assistant certification training. This is one that we really wanted to shine a light to, because it had a big impact with a quick turnaround. This is really kind of like the gold standard, and this is really why we want to work with businesses, because this is one that really defined what it needed. It needed training for CNAs and medical assistants, and it had a very large impact. Basically, we trained CNAs and medical assistants, and it helped with short-term training. It increased their wages by an average of $4 an hour. And the training was quick, the training was fast, and the training led to not only a wage increase for the CNAs, the medical assistants, but it freed up time for nurses to do other things. And this is the sort of thing that we need business input. We don't know what we can help you do, how we can make your businesses more efficient, but you do. And so for a very little investment, this had a great impact. That's what we need, you guys. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Just Kat Hamilton and her and Rachel Bunch over at the Healthcare Association led this. And so this was a time where, community colleges were doing this training over a whole semester. And they weren't having success. So what the association did is they went inside the long-term care facilities and they said, how can we do this quicker? So they did it in a much quicker, so everybody, they're already working inside the facility every day doing these jobs. They're getting this short-term training. They're able to get a certificate because it's not a whole semester. It's a very short, how many weeks is it?
We condensed it to 3.5 weeks, including classroom and clinical instruction. And the goal, when we originally did our submission, our goal was to certify 150 CNAs as medication assistants. And we actually, as of about 2 weeks ago, hit 173. And that was, we've got 2 classes ongoing right now. So our employers have been very happy with that, and we look to continue that momentum.
And I hate to say this with educators in the room, but what could be done in 3.5 weeks is being done over a semester. And that's where we have to get better. And when we know better, we do better. And so these are the type projects that we want to invest in. I'm really happy with that and training. And that's why we kind of wanted to showcase it, not just because Kat's one of our board members. It was very successful.
And then last but not least is Windrock Solutions. They were awarded a little over $400,000 for skills ops training, which gives students basic skills. And this is a population that's currently underserved in the community, so we're happy to partner with them also.
Just a note about Windrock. So back in during the pandemic, it was kind of slow around here. And so we were looking for ways to invest. And so we had Shark Tank, we called it. And so we had an RFP and we said, hey, everybody, you've got a workforce idea, come to us and tell us, how we can invest in you. And so one of those projects was the Windrock does what they call skills launch, and they take really tough populations, people sometimes who are justice involved, who are homeless, and they give them some basic skills. Their outcomes are excellent because they really case manage like 15 to 20 people at a time. And when I always go to their graduations, I'll leave with teary-eyed because of the work that they're doing. So we fund that based on completers. And we say if it costs $6,000 and costs $7,000 to put this person through this training and get them a job, we reimburse them based on completers. So really excited about that work that's being done. Those are just a few of the things we do. And so again, in the coming meetings that we have, I'm going to be asking you guys to make that decision. So, because there have been times before when people say, why didn't I get funding? Why did OSD give funding to the Healthcare Association? Why not another association? So it'll be nice to say the CEWD board made up of industry sector advisors make the decision because they've got their thumb on the pulse of workforce in their particular industry. So, last thing on the agenda is many of you probably heard about the Align funding in your packet. You have the RFP. So this is federal funding, the American Rescue Plan Act, I guess is what that stands for. And so this is called the Align program. It's Arkansas linking industry to grow nurses. And so, Office of Skills Development was, tasked with, managing that, $25 million. $20.4 million went to, higher ed institutions. And then the other $4.6 million will go to those high school LPN programs that I mentioned just recently, a little while ago. So we got those awards out. The governor's office made the announcement here at Commerce. It was a big celebration. I had members, subject matter experts on the committee to grade those proposals. So we left it pretty open-ended. It was not an application process. And that was tough for some folks, but we wanted them to think outside the box. So if you look at the RFP, we wanted to upskill people who are already in the workplace. And we wanted to let a CNA become an LPN, LPN become an RN become a BSN while they're still working. So what does that sound like? Sounds a little bit like apprenticeship because they're learning while they're earning. So it caused some of our post-secondary partners to think outside the box. Instead of having classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 11, maybe you have to go inside the hospital and have the classroom there so that nurses are able to not have to leave and get their education and then go right back on the floor and work. So we have some kind of innovative ideas. To be a part of this investment, you had to have a healthcare partner. And if you look at the awards list, most of the people who did not get an award did not have a partner, a healthcare partner. So healthcare partners are invested in this. It was a 2-to-1 match for private investment. We're really excited about this project. We have signed now 19 MOUs with all of our award recipients, and we're ready to go. And we're excited about that. So you may hear more about that. Hopefully, over the next year, we'll be giving updates on how many nurses that we have trained. Any questions about that? Lots of stuff going on at OSD. And again, Kevin told me he was going to leave early today, so normally he will leave the meeting. So I'll just let our co-chair wrap up. If you have anything that you want to say to this committee, one thing I will say, as a committee, you're going to have to decide how often you want to meet, when you want to meet, what day you want to meet. You want to meet the second Tuesday of the month. You want to. So I think maybe what we'll do is I'll have each of you text me, so I'll have your cell phone number. And then the co-chairs will contact you and you as a group can decide. We've been meeting quarterly. Now, that makes our meetings really long. We could meet every other month. That's completely, we can meet in the evenings if it works better for your schedule. We can meet at breakfast, or we can meet right here in the middle of the day. It's completely up to you guys. So that's something that you guys as a group will have to decide.
This, the workload and the need for responsiveness and engagement a lot better than we do. What is your view or recommendation on what you need and your small staff need most that support you?
Honestly, I think we could meet every other month. And, sometimes our quarterly meetings at times have gone 4 hours. Because it's so long between. I think if right now, particularly with the investments that we're going to be making with they all had to leave early to go to Pier to approve the $88 million that we're about to, and we will be over part of that, the $48 million. So there's going to be a big heavy lift. So every other month, but I understand the time constraint here too. So it's up to you guys.
We need a quorum for certain votes on certain things.
So we still have 6, so we have the quorum.
I have as much experience as everyone else.
Meeting quarterly, does that extend somebody that's needing that grant money? Does that put them in a?
Could, but again, say like, if I have a $500,000 request, I'm probably just gonna call, like if it's a diesel, I'm gonna call you. If it's a CDL and somebody came up with me an idea, I'm probably just gonna call you, because that to me, but if it's over $1 million, if it's approaching 2 million, I feel, guys, I need some cover. So it's not just OSD, it's just making these decisions. So it could hold somebody up, yeah. So that's why I'm thinking every other month would be, and we would have shorter meetings if we just were meeting every other month.
And so that maybe a set week of the month, set time, yeah. I'd be fine with that. Could always bump it out as we.
Yeah.
Work that.
once you decide that, I will send out a calendar invite, so it'll be on your calendars, for the year. Once we decide what day, what time, and, the frequency. And so we don't have to decide that today. But, again, I'll give you so I want each of you to text me and say who you are. And that way I'll have your number. And when I do have a proposal and need to talk. My number, and it's on my email, signature is 501-516-7192. And that's the only phone I have. I don't have an office desk phone. So it's in my email signature, that you got from me. So if you lose what you're writing down on right now, you can, always refer to that.
So we can wait on that particular decision. Until October. Is that?
Yeah, we could. I mean, so it's June now. We could meet, in August. I could tell you a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of enrollment, and you could get a report on our fiber broadband academy. You could get reports on Align, where we are at that. So that would be if we were meeting every other month.
I don't think we'll have enrollment numbers in August.
Yeah,
That's probably a little too soon for that.
But it sounds like a pretty big lag between now and October.
Yeah, it does. So,
We do need to
yeah.
meet.
Probably to meet, so like we think June, August, October, December. That would be 4 meetings through the end of the year. And if that's too much, if we're saying there's just not enough to do here, and sometimes you're not going to have a lot of action items, but I think it's really important for you to see what we're hearing so that you can say, if schools are telling us this is what we need, and you can say, well, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I agree, we need to get on. That's why I wanted to bring the AI, because every conference that I get an invitation to now, AI is on the menu. Everybody's talking about it. And then, Secretary McDonald was saying, we got to get out ahead of this. And so that's why I wanted to bring that to you guys right away to begin thinking about how can we become a leader.
Sure. Simply, the only other thing I would ask is, I know most of these boards, there's some statutory purview, something defined. If we can either get some summary of that,
Yes,
actual excerpts that let us know what purview we have and what we don't, and make sure that we're all on the same page, that would help.
Any other parting thoughts?
Yeah, no other questions, make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Well done.
Danny?
Chris, I said hello and look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Thank you.